That's it, right there. That's the new Hashitashi 2000. Hashitashi.
What it is, my people, it's the kid Sincere, your resident Gold Chain Gamer. And I know it's been a while since I published a video. We've done some live streams, we've done some podcasts, but not a formal video. This will be my first video in the new digs. I moved out the old crib and into a new one, so I had to set my room where I game and film videos back up. And in doing that, I ran across an issue. Not really an issue, but more like a pet peeve. I wanted to play 4K video games in this room and not in the living room. So I couldn't sacrifice that TV I have down there to bring it up here, so I had to buy a new one. But I really didn't want to spend too much cheese. Our pockets a little flat, just bought the house, got a budget. So I was looking for a 4K budget television. So I took to Twitter, I asked the question, does anyone know a good 4K budget TV, possibly under $1,000? And shout out to the kid, OBJ the Don. He came through and he basically led me in the direction of TCL. I had never heard of TCL up until this point. So when I did my Googles and I researched them, come to find out TCL is a up and coming company in the television game, and they're looking to make decent products using parts that they create and not outsourcing, which I thought was interesting. So I was recommended to the C803, went to my local micro center and bought a refurbished one, but that was a mistake because the refurbished television had a big ass white spot dead in the middle. So I had to take that thing back, shot over to Best Buy, and got the most recent TCL model, which is the R615. Now I know they got an R617, but the only difference is the remote. The R617 has voice commands on it, but the R615 doesn't, and that's all that Best Buy had, so I gripped it up for $600. Now, you might say, Sin, that don't really sound like a budget, but for what you get in the box, it's totally worth the money.
I'd buy that for $1.
Especially when it's compared to other TVs in that price range made by Sony, Samsung, and LG. Because the $600 price range for those TVs is usually the lower end, especially for a 55-inch. These TVs don't have wide color gamut or full array backlighting. So what you're getting inside the box with the TCL R615 is actually somewhere in the price range of a $1,000 TV for $600. You can't beat that. So I'm gonna give you my pros and cons after spending about almost 3 weeks with this television and playing a lot of video games on it and even watching some movies. So the first pro is where I usually go to when I first get a TV, and that's the game mode. I gotta check out how well it handles latency because I like playing shooters, I like playing Dark Souls-esque games, Neo, Bloodborne, so I wanna have good responsiveness when I'm playing this game. So I go to the game mode, turn it on, and guess what? Very little downgrading graphics. Most game modes turn the backlight all the way down, the contrast off. They really take away a lot from the image. This doesn't. This maintains that while reducing the latency, and I really think that that's just fucking amazing. I love it. Another pro is the HDR. This TV supports HDR 10 and Dolby Vision. A lot of TVs don't support both. The Dolby Vision is more or less, that's good with movies. Movies use Dolby Vision, so if you have a 4K UHD Blu-ray player that supports Dolby Vision, you're in for a treat because it's gonna look amazing. But if you're playing on the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X, they only support HDR 10, so you're basically stuck with that, but it looks really good. Why? Because it supports wide color gamut, and it has a full array backlighting, and it has dynamic contrast. So when it gets blacker or lighter in certain spots, that's when the backlight works. It looks really, really good, especially with games that utilize it. I liked Star Wars Battlefront 2, Call of Duty, World War II, a couple other games, man. It just looks really good and really bright, stands out, pops off the screen. This TV does a great job with HDR. Another pro is price versus performance. Now I know you say, Sin, how can you gauge that? Well, I have a Samsung SUHD. I want to say it's a KS8500, and that TV cost about $1,200, $1,300. And the price versus performance at that time I thought were pretty even for what I paid for it and what the TV does. This TV basically does what that TV does, even though that TV's 2 years old, for $600. So the price versus performance ratio is actually higher because you're getting a lot of performance for a lower price. So that's another plus. Another thing this TV does well is the OS. It uses Roku. So if you ever use the Roku stick, plugged it into a TV, this is basically the same deal. It's very responsive. Everything is in blocks and right in front of the screen. Nothing is hard to find. You can even set up your HDMI inputs to say PlayStation, Xbox, or PC. I found everything with ease. I didn't have a problem with it. It's not the most great looking OS, but it's very functional and it does exactly what I needed to do, especially for playing video games. Works perfectly. And finally, this TV handles motion really good. I watched sports, movies, and played a lot of video games. I didn't see any artifacts when moving. It does have one of those high frame rate modes. I turn that off every time. That does nothing for me. So I turned that off and it handles regular motion well. It does support 120 Hertz, I think at 1080p, not at 4K. 4K supports 60 Hertz, but that's gonna lead me to my first con. Yeah, I plugged my PC up to the third HDMI and I couldn't get 4K 60. I couldn't get past 4K 30. The screen would just go black. And I thought that all three inputs supported 4K 60 with HDR, but obviously it doesn't. Now, if I'm wrong, somebody correct me in the comments, let me know. But for right now, when I plugged the PC up, and I mean, I know how to, set it up properly, just didn't work. But when I went to another HDMI port, it worked fine. So I think it's just that third HDMI port, definitely a con for me. Now, another thing I didn't like about this TV was the design. Now, the screen looks fine, but the sound is terrible. You're going to need a sound bar, and it's bulky. The bezel is very bulky. There's a lot of depth to the bezel, and all the components are at the bottom of the TV. So if you're mounting this on a wall, it's kind of weird mounting it. It's going to sit off your wall some, to where if you have that flat portrait picture panel, it looks beautiful when it's mounted to the wall. It just looks like you have a picture up there, but it's really a TV. This, not so much. It's gonna look weird, because everything's at the bottom and the bezel's really thick. It's like some stainless steel. It doesn't look horrible, but it's not the best looking TV I've seen for sure. And my last con is a pet peeve. Maybe the blacks aren't as dark as I would like them. Now, beggars can't be choosers. I did look for a 4K budget TV, but goddamn, some things look a little ashy. That scene could have used some lotion, but guess what? It's not that bad. It's barely noticeable. That's just me running the TV through the gamut and seeing what I liked about it and didn't. But for the most part, I really like this TV. The TCL R615. I got 55 inches. It comes in 55 and 65 inches. This room's not that big, so I went with the 55 inch for $600, and I can't recommend this anymore. So if you're a gamer and you have one of these mid-gen console refreshes, the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X, or you got a badass 1080 Ti i7 setup in your PC and you want to game in 4K, this is the TV to do it because it has low input lag. It's very, very bright, it has wide color gamut. It supports 2 forms of HDR. Yes, 2 forms of HDR. Full array backlight. It has everything. It's a great TV for the price. TCL is on the come up. I honestly can't wait to see what they're gonna do. I think they're gonna, jump into what I call the big three: Sony, Samsung, and LG. Because if they're selling stuff at this price point and it's this good, I can't imagine what they're gonna do in the future. So, hey, listen, if you grab a TCL R615 or you already have a TCL, maybe one of the older models, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about it. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you think a friend would like this video, hit the share button. And if you like all of this right here, subscribe to the channel. The kid will highly appreciate it. Check me out on the web at freshgodcurt.com and on Twitter at sincere_GCG. In the meantime, in the between time, if you're going to get your 4K gaming on, I know 4K is the new buzzword, it's the way of the future, and you have an Xbox One X, a PS4 Pro, a Nintendo, forget that, a badass PC, and you want to play in 4K, I guarantee you will not be disappointed with this TV. They didn't pay me anything. I just found out about it. It's an awesome TV, guys. So I'll catch you on the other end. Remember, it's more than a game. It's a lifestyle. Peace. Wait, you still here? Well, since you're here, subscribe to the channel or check out my last video. Either way, thanks for watching and cheers, I guess. Now, how do I take over the world? Step 1.